Suburban Sentinel here, having afternoon coffee with the critters. Today I'm going to focus on the birds because the subject of today's video is flying. Not their kind of flying, but I'm talking about air travel using commercial airlines. To put it bluntly, commercial flying sucks. I really do detest flying commercial airlines, but sometimes it is the most practical and efficient way of getting from A to B. It's not like it was in the old days. Flying has become, at the very least, a degrading experience, and sometimes becomes a completely dehumanizing activity. The purpose of this video is to review one strategy I use to make a bad situation a little bit more tolerable. Before we get into the what to do, I want to talk a little bit about the Aircrews. First, the cabin crews, what used to be called stewardesses and stewards. I believe the appropriate terminology is now flight attendants. And they have a very difficult job. I know this not because I ever was one, but I used to be in the airline business, and I did travel quite frequently, and I knew a lot more than I should have about their particular job. Wendell was just over by the bird feeder. Yeah, you know what happened to him. Let me find him. There he is, back in the bushes taking a breather. Anyway, as I was saying, being a flight attendant is hard work. It's a fairly hostile environment and difficult working conditions. It's crowded. They have to deal with surly and unruly passengers. They're underpaid and very much underappreciated. The flight deck crew isn't that much better off. Being a pilot is no longer the glamour career it once was. Pilots, in my opinion, are underpaid for the responsibility they have and the training, both initial and recurring, required. A pilot who entered the industry, let's say within the last 15 or 20 years, probably does not earn nearly as much as a union bus driver. So in sum, the air crew, and that is both the cabin crew and the flight deck crew, don't have it so good. So what I'm talking about today is one means of making your experience traveling by airliner a little bit better for both you and the crew. In my humble opinion, I believe that it is reasonable, appropriate, and wise to give the entire crew a little gift. So what kind of gift? Now, actually, I give them two gifts, and I'll review each one in turn. First, I give the entire crew a card, not one for each person, one addressed to the entire crew. Just a simple card in an unsealed envelope. And I believe that it's also necessary, even if you get a thank you card, to put something handwritten in it, which thanks them for their service and acknowledges that each of their jobs is not easy. Wilma just walked down the screen here, little female. Boy, she really is a lot smaller than Wendell. I'll review the details on how to give them the card a little bit later in the video. But let me point out first, be sure if you give them a card to sign your full name as it appears on your ticket. You want the name on the card to match exactly with the name on the passenger manifest. And I'll explain why later. Although the simple thank you card is more than likely sufficient, I like to go further. I think giving the card is a terrific idea, but I like to give them something tangible as well. And what I do is I give each crew member a gift card to Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Panera's, one of those type places. Years ago, I used to give the crew boxes of wrapped candy or other foods. I don't think that's really so good anymore with TSA and all their nonsense and all the paranoia about hijackings and poisonings. I think the gift cards are better. They're very innocuous. They're easy to carry, very simple to handle and give away. It's just overall better. And the cabin crews are often watching their weight, but everybody loves the fancy coffee. So Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks go real well. Panera's, depending on the area of the country, places like that. Certainly gift cards aren't the only thing you could give the flight crew. Yes, Bella, I know, you're out there. Where was I? Gift cards aren't the only thing you could give the flight crew, but there are certain things to avoid. First and foremost, besides unwrapped food, is cash. First of all, airline policies, at least most of them, prohibit the flight crew from taking cash. And second, almost every flight crew member I ever met would find getting cash as somewhat of an insult, even if well-intentioned. Of course, if you're going to give away multiple gift cards, this is real money. If you're giving one to both the flight deck crew and the cabin crew, you may have a crew of between 7 or 9 people, and it does get expensive. So why would anyone do this? I'm not in the habit of wasting money, so I believe there are good reasons, and let's go into that right now. First and foremost, I engage in this practice because, in my opinion, it is the right thing to do. The crowded airplanes, the surly passengers, the small seats, lack of leg room, the TSA and their nonsense, none of this is the flight crew's fault. They have no control over that. They work very hard to get you where you're going safely, and they're often abused for it very badly for their trouble. So I like to show my appreciation for their efforts. A secondary reason I give away the thank you notes and the gift cards is the only thing I really expect in return for the token of my appreciation is what I call the benefit of the doubt. And what I mean by the benefit of the doubt is as follows. When that cabin door closes, you as a passenger, along with your fellow passengers, have entered into a unique environment. That is, the flight crew, both the cabin crew and the flight deck crew, now have a tremendous amount of authority. They become the law inside and around that aircraft. And I agree with doing it. It's absolutely necessary for the safety of the flight. The crew has a great deal of discretion when it comes to dealing with issues and difficulties inside the cabin. Also, the air crew has tremendous influence on the traditional authorities once that plane returns to Earth. If everyone on the flight crew says passenger Joe Blow was really out of line, the NTSB, the FBI, and the local police tend to believe them, and rightfully so. If there is some type of altercation on board and you as a passenger are involved, you want the best chance of the flight crew having every reason to believe you were not the instigator. In one instance, I actually had to restrain one of the passengers. I ended up sitting on top of him for about the last 20 minutes of a flight. And that was kind of interesting. From a potential legal perspective, it was no issue for me because I was an airline employee and I knew the entire flight crew and they knew me. But picture, if you will, if I were just an ordinary passenger. And what happened at the outset, this guy started up with me, and I wasn't in a uniform or anything. I just looked like another passenger, and I was sitting next to some guy, and he got unruly, abusive, and it got physical. And I really don't know why. I don't think I'm very often a disagreeable person, but that's the way it went down. Imagine, if you will, you're a flight attendant and you hear some commotion near the back of the cabin. So you run over to investigate and you see two pretty big guys trying to beat the crap out of each other. Now here you are, 5'2" or 5'3", 100 pounds soaking wet, and you're going to try to break this up. Not a good situation. If you are just one of two passengers that she's barely noticed before, who knows whose side of the story she will believe. Perhaps she will just blame both of you and let the authorities sort it out. Or, if you are passenger XYZ, the nice guy who gave the flight crew a thank you note and some gift cards, my guess is that you would probably get the benefit of the doubt as being the guy in the white hat. I'm going to switch over to the feeder here. The turkeys took a powder. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about potential ancillary benefits. And that is, of ancillary benefits of giving the thank you note and gift cards. And that is freebies. Now again, I don't give gift cards and thank you notes expecting anything in return other than the benefit of the doubt. However, on occasion, I have been given freebies that anyone else on that flight would not have gotten. On several occasions, I have been bumped up from either coach to business class or coach to first class. Now, of course, that can't happen on every flight, but it has happened. I've also gotten extra attention from the cabin crew. A couple extra drinks here and there. A few times I got bottles of wine. And again, I don't expect the crew to reciprocate, but on occasion, I've gotten some nice freebies out of it. So take that for what it's worth. Next, I want to go into the details of how to give your gift. Assuming you're doing both a thank you card and gift cards, put them all in one unsealed envelope. Now, you want to give this gift during a period of relatively light activity in the cabin, and you want to do it before the cabin door closes. The best time is early on in the boarding process. Now, I realize that airlines now have all these goofy things where they board certain rows and all that rigmarole, usually from the rear of the plane to the front. But what I do is, when they ask first if there's anyone with young children or needs special assistance, I board them. I just go up as if I am one of the special assistance people. I've only been questioned about that by another passenger once. And I just told them I have a mental defect and I need time to meditate in my seat. Otherwise, I could have some type of nervous breakdown, and they left me alone for the entire flight. By the way, how many gift cards do you give? It depends on the number of crew members. If you want to include the flight deck crew, that's great. And if not, of course, you don't have to. But what you can do is call your airline and find out what kind of aircraft you're going to be on, give them the flight number, and they'll be able to tell you how many crew members there are. Anyway, you want to give the thank you note and gift cards in an unsealed envelope to the head flight attendant. As you walk on the aircraft, the head flight attendant is usually standing in the galley right next door to the cabin entry door. Right? Don't just hand it to them and walk away. You don't want them confusing you, handing them something, anything nefarious like a hostage note or anything. So just pause momentarily, hand the head flight attendant the cards and gift cards, and saying, this is a token of my appreciation for your efforts. This is for the entire flight crew. Recall that we talked about signing your full name as it appears on your ticket. The reason you're doing that is that the head flight attendant will have the passenger manifest, and your name in their heads will be converted to a seat number. You'll no longer be John Smith, you'll be the guy in 7B or whatever. Again, you want to do this very early in the boarding process for a couple of reasons. One, you want the cabin door to the aircraft open so that the aircraft is less vulnerable. In other words, ground authorities can still get to the airplane, so the cabin crew doesn't feel nearly as vulnerable. Second, very early during the boarding process, when a few people are just walking on, they're not real busy trying to shove stuff in the overhead bins that are already crowded. It's a period of relative calm inside the cabin. So that's my spiel on giving the aircraft crew gifts. In conclusion, I think it's really the right thing to do. If you do the gift cards, it's not cheap. I recommend doing it on every trip if you can. If you can't do it on every trip, certainly the longer trips, international flights, the longer the trip, the more important it is in my estimation. Also, if you can, do it for every leg, especially if you're just going from A to B and back, where I do it on both the departing and the return flights. And sometimes I've been upgraded just because one of the flight crew has alerted the returning flight, or maybe on the returning flight, and say, hey, this guy here, Joe Blow from the manifest, he's a cool guy, blah, 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 treat him right. And it's really nice when I have gift cards for the return trip as well. So thanks for watching. This is the Suburban Sentinel. Please thumbs up and subscribe if you like what you see. Questions and enlightening comments are always welcome. Fly safely, everybody.